Boston College adds a 6'3" cornerback, and this is just another weapon in what's becoming a fascinating defensive backfield.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I have been covering Boston College for over a decade. I've been the host of the show for over 5 years. And if you're looking for a daily Boston College podcast, one that gets into the insight, analysis, and scoops that you are not going to find everywhere else 5 days a week, you are in the right place. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. On today's show, the final official visit weekend is in the books. We're going to give you the latest on Carter Gooden, Femi Babalola, and Marky Walbridge, the terrific triad that BC needs to land some of. Where are they at, and how is BC standing right now? We're going to give you two more commits that are coming in. We don't know their names, but Spencer Dickow, the general manager, made some clues that make it pretty clear who they are. I'll talk about that. And we have a new commitment from a previous weekend. We're going to talk about that first. Xavier Myers, a 6'3" defensive back from Mount St. Joseph in Maryland, committed to Boston College on Friday, just a week after he took his official visit to Chestnut Hill. Now, Xavier Myers is not a name a lot of folks are aware of, but this is another one of those maybe under-recruited kids that has the athletic profile and the size profile that with good coaching could really make him a fascinating defensive back in the future. Now you look at his offer list; it's nothing to write home with. He does not have any Power 4 offers. Now you may ask yourself why. He's playing at Mount St. Joseph in Maryland. Maryland. Why are they not? And I don't have a good answer for that. But Corey Robinson, an NFL level cornerbacks coach who has coached for ages, evaluated him, watched him work out. And after watching him work out, made him that offer. And I honestly, this is the type of flyer, if that's what you want to call it, I would take in a heartbeat. He can run a 4.4, 4.5, 40-yard dash. And at 6'3", you don't have cornerbacks like that grow on vines. And so for a team like Boston College, you're not going to get the 5 stars. You never are. But you're going to fill your roster with recruits that you like. You're going to get hopefully your Carter Goodens, your Dean Ruxnitis, your Mason Leaks. You've got offers out there to some good recruits, but you need to fill it also with guys that you are able to scout and say, I'm going to be able to develop those guys. Because that is what Boston College has been all about. You look back, and we've talked about this before, with the Tommy Sweeneys, the Hunter Longs, the Justin Simmonses, Cameron Moores. Lots of these guys were under recruited. So you have two choices here. You can either trust the staff and their ability to evaluate, or you don't. And that's where you stand. And I can't change how you view it because that's your personal point of view. My point of view, and this is my podcast, you're listening to it to get that point of view, is you have countless years of NFL experience on this roster in terms of coaching. You have Tim Lewis, you have Corey Robinson, you have Bill O'Brien. You have plenty of guys out there that have watched enough film, that have played, coached enough football, that they know good talent when they see it. And so, yes, I'm going to trust that Bill O'Brien and his staff saw in Xavier Myers a player that could be ACC caliber. Honestly, I keep saying this, at 6'3", I'm willing to take a risk, right? What was the knock on Jeff Hafley and his cornerbacks, the flyers that he took in? They were 5'10" at most. Many of them were undersized. Some of them lacked the speed that this guy has. So, yes, you brought him in. You found out that he fits the system that you want to build. He is a developmental player that's going to take a little bit of time. But guess what? When you look at your defensive backfield, when you look at what you've brought in, you can afford that. You can afford to sit with him and redshirt him for a year because, on top of having Max Tucker, and on top of having Ashton McShane, who will both be back, you have plenty of underclassmen that are all developing right now, whether it's Syer Torrance or Ashton Cunningham or Najita Sankala or TJ Green. The list goes on and on. They brought in a huge class already. And many of these defensive backs are more ready to play than Xavier Myers. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is a luxury that you want your team to have. That you have guys that are more game ready that you can plug and play right away. And then you have guys that you stash. Guys that you just develop, you work with. They sit maybe lower on your depth chart, they redshirt, and you work with them until they are ready. And when they are ready, you see the characteristics and traits that you hope will make them an ACC caliber secondary player. I see that with Xavier Myers. I do. I see a guy that you can use as a cornerback and that you can build, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, and have him for 3 years. And that is a good thing to do. Now, looking at the secondary, I believe BC is done. I think they are done. You have two cornerbacks. You have Myers and you have Gerald Green Jr. out of Moore Catholic in New York. Both track stars. Can you see what Bill O'Brien's doing here? Pretty clear. You also have two safeties. As we are going to talk about now, there was a second commitment, and I didn't even put it in my show notes. I probably should have. That happened as well with Jordan Rodriguez committing. On Saturday, more good news came. It was a busy weekend. Jordan Rodriguez, the safety from St. Peter's Prep, also committed. Now, if you're a offers fan, if you're a guy that likes seeing what offers a guy gets, Jordan Rodriguez is your man. This guy had offers from Arkansas, Duke. He took an official visit to Duke, Georgia Tech. He had a number of offers that came through, and he chose Boston College. This was an interesting recruitment to watch because he took an official visit to BC, shut down his official visits, which if you follow recruiting is usually a good tell that he's committing. Well, he didn't commit, and he went to visit Duke and then ends up committing to BC. Still, St. Peter's Prep, that's the same school that you've seen with guys like Ben Petrula. They've had many guys that have come through that school. A safety that has really good film. And I think if you get him on the field, he's going to be really good and fun to watch. He's much more, I think of him as more polished than Xavier Myers, but he's your first safety. So this is, another good get, another Corey Robinson, again, landing another solid secondary player and your second safety. So you have him, you have Dejon Green from Choctaw, Oklahoma. I realized, and you guys all brought it up to me, I screwed up the name of that town. It's Choctaw, Oklahoma. He's your other safety. And so you have two safeties and two defensive backs. That's about it. And if you've been watching the other defensive backs that you had in, that maybe you were looking at, maybe were more probably plan Bs, are gone. So Matt Iadi, he just committed to Wake Forest. Again, probably a second. He was probably lower on your charts. And then a few other guys that you were expecting, like Sorrell Howard, never made it. Like he just didn't. I feel like they felt good about who they had and they moved on. So you have 4 secondary players. As long as no one decommits, you're in good shape there. That's it. You don't need any more. Now, in a moment, there are more commitments coming in, and we don't know who they are yet. But Spencer Dickhow, the general manager of Boston College, made a few clues, and I think you could probably guess who they are. We'll get into all that in just a moment. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game with your friends and are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite Red Sox games, and with Rafi Devers gone, I love to see what the odds are looking like for those games. I'm feeling that the exit of him is going to lead to more wins for the Red Sox, and I'm following the Sox on FanDuel. Whether it's I'm placing a same game parlay or watching a bet ride in the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get yourself started. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen. I see you all out there checking us out and making sure that you're getting all the latest Boston College news from us, and I appreciate each and every one of you. When you're done with this episode, check out Locked On Red Sox. As I mentioned, with Rafi Devers gone, you want to hear what they have to say about the current state of the Sox. Check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Now, final official visit weekend is in the books. BC had over 10 official visitors on campus. And right now, at the time of this recording, Sunday evening, you can see the lights still going on behind me. BC has 2 commitments that I know of. If you follow Spencer Dickow on Twitter, and a lot of you do, you know when he puts up the bat signal that there's something. And he gave out 2 clues that made it pretty easy to guess who they landed. Now, the first one was on Saturday morning. And it basically simply said, got ourselves a little Southern cooking, earn it. Now, if you are a member of Eagle Insider and you got my official visit list, there weren't very many people that were coming that were from the South. It was pretty easy. There was guys from New York. You had your committed guys. There were 2 that came from the South. Femi Babalola from Tennessee and Jackson Carlisle, a defensive tackle from Alabama. Now, I could tell you, I would guess that if they landed Femi Babalola, they would not be tweeting the way that they did. I think they probably would be making a much bigger deal out of it, and you would have seen stuff out of other coaches like John DiBiase and stuff like that. Because it didn't mention him and I didn't see anyone else making a big deal out of it, it looks to me like Jackson Carlisle is the guy. Now, if you don't know who Jackson Carlisle is, and again, there could be a surprise here too. If it's Carlisle, many of you may not know who he is. He's from Alabama. Another, if you're talking Southern guys, this is it. He's from Tuscaloosa. And he is 6'3", 265 pounds. So he could definitely still fill out to be a defensive tackle. And he doesn't have a huge offer list, but BC had him in early. They had him in for a visit back in the spring. I remember there's a picture of him with Bill, and they really liked him. So there's nothing wrong with this. If you don't expect to get Amir Clark, if you don't expect to get, some of these other defensive tackles that they've been looking at and they just haven't been able to get, this is the guy to go for. If you've watched his film, you think that he's the guy you want, you go and get him. He's a 3-star. He has a rating of 85. He's the number 77 recruit in Alabama. More of a quiet recruit. Nothing wrong with that. So that was number 1. Number 2 is about as clear as you can get. And if you're an everydayer, if you've been listening to Locked On BC all last week, this name is not a surprise to you because I've been talking about him. And I made stupid Encanto jokes about it. I made all sorts of jokes about it on Twitter. And I'll read you the tweet from Spencer Dickow. He said, this was on Sunday afternoon, if you can play where we will find you, no matter where you are. Germany flag. Well, again, on last week's episode, I specifically mentioned that there was a guy from Germany coming for an official visit. His name is Bruno Warner. And I had him as a guy to watch for. And unless there's another guy from Germany, and I don't know about it, and they tried to hide it from me, it's going to be Bruno Warner. That's my guess. Okay. And I feel like that one's a pretty easy one to guess because there's not many guys from Germany that are NFL and college level prospects. So Bruno, is a 6'9", 300-pound plus offensive tackle who's at the NFL Academy in London. Now he, as I said on last week's episode, he is a guy that, no one really, again, like the NFL Academy, some of them people just don't know about. He's not related to, was it Bjorn Warner that played for FSU? Different name, different guy. He is a guy that he came to the States, I think at the beginning of May this year. And he had a schedule of schools that he visited. And it's easy to track who his offers were and where he visited because they all line up. Because every school that he ended up at, someone offered him, whether it was Mississippi State, Rutgers, Syracuse. He has a good offer list. This is a guy that not everyone knew about. He was more under the radar. Rutgers offered him, and UMass and UConn. So he took an official visit to UConn. So I look at Bruno Warner. I look at this commitment as a guy who had decent offers, who only had a handful of decent offers because there's not much to go on. He played in Europe. He played at the London Academy, which has now become kind of a pipeline for BC, which is honestly, I think, kind of interesting for a developmental program. And it's not just Bill O'Brien. Jeff Hafley has done it too. You've had Pape Sai from Senegal, an offensive tackle that you brought in. Andy Quinn, a punter from Ireland that you brought in. And now what looks to be Bruno Warner from Germany that's probably going to be coming in as an offensive tackle. Now, you might mention the Serbian kid, Elijah Krasnovic. He didn't go to London. He did not go to London. He played in Serbia and then flamed out at BC. So he's different. But I look at this. This is your fifth offensive lineman that you brought in. And folks have asked me, AJ, because they landed Warner, does that mean they didn't get Marky? That does not mean that they didn't get Marky. Marky Wahbridge, we'll talk about in just a moment. I will get into that discussion in just a minute. But I want to finish this discussion about Bruno Warner. He's playing in Europe, so he's going to need some time. But again, we go back to, is your school developmental, and what are these kids like that you're bringing in? Bringing in a 6'9", 300-pound offensive tackle that could possibly play is absolutely fine with me. That is exciting. That is, like, you talk about upside. Like, if you can make him one of your starting tackles, you're going to have a mountain of a man in just a couple of years that can really solidify one position. He is humongous. So yes, I think this is a good one. I really do like this, and it does not impact Marky Walbridge. We'll get into that in just a moment. So that is your two. There's two commitments. Again, I don't know who is committing. The fact that they used a German flag really makes the second one a little bit more clear. And the first one seems like it's pretty clear, but we don't know exactly yet. But that's where the tea leaves are looking at right now. Now, in our final segment, you guys all want to know about it. The big three, the terrific triad. How's BC standing on all three? I'll get into all that in just a moment. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. And for all of you that make us your first listen every day, I make this podcast tailor-made for your commute. If you're driving to work and you have like a 25-minute commute, guess what? My episode's 26 minutes. You can listen to the whole thing, get all your Boston College news, and impress all your coworkers with everything you know about what's going on with the Eagles. I hope you hit that subscribe and like button on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Now, let's talk about the terrific triad. It's gone down from the Fab Four. I kind of told you that, I did not expect Kai Pritchard to commit, and he ended up at Illinois. Now we're down to three. Where do things stand? Well, Marky Walbridge, he took his official visit to Michigan this weekend. Michigan has been the leader for Marky through, most of this commitment. But I preface all of this with saying no one knows what's going on with Marky Walbridge, except for his parents, maybe his coach, and a friend or two. He does not talk to the media. If you were on 247, Brian Doan talked to his head coach, and in one article made it seem like BC was still in it. In another, not so much. If I were a betting man, if FanDuel had a line on this, would I pick Marky Walbridge to BC? I don't think I would. If I was a smart betting man on that one, I just feel like Michigan looks like it to me. But I say that with the caveat that, again, I don't know what is going through his mind. Maybe he wants to play closer to home. Maybe he likes Bill O'Brien. Maybe there's something that I'm missing here. I don't know. So he, of the three, is the one I feel least confident about. I'm going to say that right now. The other two, let's start with probably my second least confident, which is Carter Gooden. Carter Gooden took his official visit to Boston College this weekend. This was a major weekend for BC. And I know the emphasis was put on him and Femi as like two of the big names that they were really, really excited about and really wanted to make an emphasis to land. So when you're talking about Carter Gooden, the staff really wanted him. And I know that I've read and heard things that, BC is much more than I think with Marky. I feel like BC is very much in with Carter Gooden at this point. Will they get him? I 50-50. I would I mean, this one right here. If you're going to get one of the three, Carter Gooden is the one I would love to see the most, just because he's a position of need. He's local. He's like rated like higher than anyone else they've ever had in years. Like there's so much to like about what he could do that I think you got to love what he could bring. And from everything I've heard, everything I've read, and I have my sources too. To me, it sounds like it's a 2-team battle, and it's a bi-coastal battle. It's UCLA and Boston College. There are no crystal balls in for him. He's pretty quiet too, I gotta say. And I don't think that we'll probably I think he said he's going to be announcing in the next month. So hopefully we'll get an answer on that one. But I do feel like BC is, I have not heard anything about this weekend. I've not got any vibes. I've never got, anything from the staff or sources or anything like that. But I know it was a super important weekend, and that they're going to be rolling out the red carpet for him. That he is, of anyone in this class, like the top priority. So I'm sure Bill O'Brien and his staff, they wanted everything perfect for him, and hopefully they did, and wowed his parents, and hopefully that helped as well. The final name that we're looking at is Femi Babalola. Now, BC has DJ Bordeaux, a quarterback from, I think he's in Colorado now, but he's bounced between Colorado and Georgia. He's already committed. He's a guy that they've had for a little bit now. Femi has been someone that they've gone after for over a year. Remember, this is a guy from Ravenwood, Tennessee, that Boston College offered when he wasn't doing anything for Tennessee, like Ravenwood. Like, you look at his stats, you go, really? The staff saw him, Jonathan DiBiaso, Bill O'Brien, Will Long, they all watched him, and then they made him a priority. And it was one of the smartest things that BC has done, because Babalola went to camps this spring, blew up, got a whole bunch of offers. His official visit list was huge, but who has been there since day one? Boston College, DiBiaso, O'Brien. They have shown faith in this kid from day one. Now, the one piece that makes me more cautious about this is the two quarterbacks. I don't know from talking to Femi. I haven't talked to him. I talked to him a while ago, but he's been kind of quiet lately. I don't know how he feels about two quarterbacks in a class. Some guys get spooked. Some guys are like, yeah, whatever, bring it. So I'm not sure what Femi thinks about this. I'm not sure if he thinks this is a good thing. If, that could be a tougher thing. So he's down to Maryland, BC, and Arizona. And there was, I think he visited Wake Forest too. There was another school that he visited that he hasn't made a big deal about. But I feel as long as things went well this weekend, if BC didn't set all the right things and they clicked like they should, this would be the one I'm most confident about. And this would be a great get, because again, it would really build your quarterback room. So your three are right there. Can you land them? And I look at the class, it's at like what, 22, 23. You're basically done. Like Bill O'Brien and his staff, from here on out, you're going to have the guys that you're going to get. Maybe you land a few of these guys I just mentioned, but otherwise it's just staying in contact, keeping that relationship flowing, and you're done. Maybe you get another one or two in the fall. Your class of 2026 is all set. Obviously, getting a guy like Carter Gooden or Marky Walbridge would really take that group to the next level. But I look at some of the guys that they brought in, the recruits that they've added, and I could see ratings bumps for some of them. And I know some of you are going to go, well, AJ, they went to BC, and 247 doesn't do ratings bumps for guys for BC. And I say, yes, but they do. Remember Sterling Sanders last year, who went from an absolute nobody to a 4-star in about a month. Why did he do that? Because he had a lot of tangibles and good qualities that made him attractive. Pape Sai, another guy who didn't even really play all that much. His initial rating was an 89. Like, it could happen. I could see it with a lot of these guys. Xavier Myers, I talked about him earlier. I could see him getting a bump if he has a good spring and goes to a camp or something like that, or his film pops. It could happen. So don't dismiss the guys that are here already when you're talking about where the recruiting rankings are, because I definitely think it could improve for BC. Thank you all so much. Happy Monday to everyone out there. Hope you like this episode. If you do, follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check me out on TikTok, out there with all the kids. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of new faces out there I don't know of. Hopefully they come and are listening to this podcast, and check me out on YouTube as well. If you haven't done so already, hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.